All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and it's about 4 minutes after, so I'm going to go ahead and welcome everybody. Thanks for making it. Tammy wants to be able to say some stuff, but her sound is kind of spotty right now at her place, so she asked me to welcome everybody. So welcome to last week's CREC meeting, and hopefully we can get some really good insight from Jonathan on kind of what's going on through him and through the work that he's going on right now. So I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody. That way we just don't have a lot of people talking. If you have questions, you can definitely type in a chat, and I can kind of address them, and I'll talk to Jonathan as time allows. And I'm going to hand it over to him to kind of get going.
Well, great. Well, thanks, Chris. So I'll talk real quick from a macro level. I mean, obviously, I think we're probably feeling what everyone else is feeling right now, outside of grocery stores and a few other niche businesses. It's been pretty stark. So I think we're trying to figure out what do we feel good about and pursuing and moving forward on, and then what are the things that we wanted to kind of pull the reins in on. And so we had a hotel deal that we've kind of hit pause. We don't think it's a long-term pause, but it's a couple month, 3-month pause to say, let's figure out what's going to happen with hospitality and those kind of things, and how long is the coronavirus going to cause the mayhem that it has. And then there's other things that we think, 9 months, 12 months from now, life may be different, but there will be a normalcy enough to support some of these businesses. And so we've moved ahead on some office buildings that will be owner occupied office buildings, and some other things like that we think have staying power to kind of weather this intermediate period or this storm. So I assume you guys are all kind of in that world. And so I know it's not fun, but I would encourage you to hang in there, and we're trying to do the same thing. So anyways, so what I was going to talk about in this slide deck was really just 2 projects that we've, one is under construction and was under construction before the coronas came our way. And then the second one is one that we decided to go ahead and move forward with, even though of the current situation. And so this first slide, which I think you guys didn't get to see, or maybe you did get to see only this slide last week, is a project at 2nd and Klein. Klein is kind of the westernmost entrance point off of the Midtown Boulevard. They recently, I think due to Steve Lagmeyer complaining, have put in a 4-way interchange there, which is really important with stoplights. But we fell in love with this property. It backs up, or it sits just south of the canola oil plant that I think probably many of you have seen. It's about 3 blocks from Stone Cloud Brewery. And the things we liked with it, as you can kind of tell in the top left with the yellow kind of drawings of the different buildings or structures, is there's a lot of place to self-park. So this is still transitional enough that we didn't know how people would feel about parking along the street. And so and you'll see some pictures, but we felt like, one, we could get parking there as an intermediate use, and then hopefully long term we could actually build on the parking and figure out a parking solution offsite. The second thing that we did, and the reason really why we chose to buy this, was we had 3 tenants who were asking for us to go find them something. And so one was, it's a husband-wife duo. They got married young, but when they met at like 18 or 19, they both realized they love beer. And so they said, let's spend the next 15 years figuring out every aspect of the brewery business. And so they're from Ohio. And so they actually moved to Oklahoma because the final aspect that one of the partners wanted to learn about was the operations side, and Joel Irby at Stone Cloud was hiring for that. And so the wife took that job, and then her husband Reed jumped in on he was the head brewer for Prairie. So they're going to take, and I don't know if you can see my mouse or the arrow at all, but they're going to take the northern space. They're taking the top north 2 buildings, and then we're building a tap room in between that. And so Reed is incredibly talented. Their brewery will be called Fairweather Friend. And so beer is fairly recession proof. Most of our breweries that we have as tenants right now are still doing okay because they're able to distribute, and then the Able commissions allowed them to deliver. So I talked with Joel at Stone Cloud yesterday, and he said they did, I think they did about 85% of what they did last year during this time period since COVID started. So that's pretty phenomenal. I mean, there's not many industries that are able to hold in like that. And so, so that will be the northern part. And then we also had the Tower Theater guys, who we obviously are a part of from an operations side, but the partners had said there's really no 500 cap music venue. And a lot of the shows that we've been putting in the Tower are would be better suited in a 500 cap venue. The cost is less. It feels better. And so we're moving forward on that. They've signed a lease. Now, I think we're pretty hesitant. We weren't necessarily in agreement with our governor's comments yesterday about when it's time to all get together. So I think we'll probably be really slow on having this space open, but it'll be called Beer City Music Hall. And I do think it'll be a great venue. And I'll talk about where you get in and all of that in a second. But the final tenant is the guy who opened up Bar Arbolada. And then he's also helped with the rebranding of a restaurant in the Plaza District. And so he's a Oklahoma guy who moved to LA and then moved back. And he's going to do kind of like a low dive burger bar. And so it'll be a good place to get a great burger. And he sells burgers on Saturday, and he starts selling them at 10 p.m. So past many people in this room's bedtime, but that's when he starts selling them, and they sell out every night or every time he does it. And so they're pretty incredible. And so that's what he'll do. And then it'll be craft beer. And so for us, the things that we believe draw people to an area are breweries and music. And we have that here. And so we think, even though it is a little bit on the edge, that it will get people excited and moving over there. So this is a rendering of what it'll look like when we're done. You can see kind of the Mad Max backdrop to the north of the canola oil plant, the entrance there, and then the honky tonk bar along the eastern side of the building. This is what it looks like right now. So you can tell that's kind of the main drive in, and to the right is parking. We've kind of got these telephone poles that will have mason jars that hang down from them that will light up the pathway. And we've got them also in the parking lot. And it was, this is from who we're using. It's Vincent Construction, who we use, and that's Kyle Nelson and Josh Martin. And those guys worked with the Big Boys Manhattan, and can't remember who else, but they decided they wanted to kind of do some more small projects and do their own thing. And so this has been a design build process with them, and we've really enjoyed getting to work with them, and been really impressed with just kind of the way that they have handled this project. This is kind of in the parking lot looking back to the northwest. If you can see, there's quite a bit where that white truck is, essentially going north to those blue bays, will be just grass. And so the idea will be that we'll have grass and games and a place where people can run around. The whole focal point of this development is the north side. So you'll actually enter into the music venue and to Riley's spot and to Fairweather Friends all on the back. And so the idea being that, the negative of this space is it's in a transitional area, but what we've created is a space that's pretty closed off and protected. So it's a weird place where you can actually take your kids and let them run around and play, or your grandkids or whoever, and actually have a beer and sit on the patio or have a meal and watch. And so that doesn't exist a lot in Oklahoma City. Typically, there's really good food and beverage concepts that you don't take your kids to, and then you take your kids to some places and you try to get them out as quickly as possible. but there's very few places that kind of have a playful engagement between the two. And so that's what we're hoping to have here. This is kind of on the far north side of the building structure, and you can see those patios that are being built out. The corner building, the building closest to us, is Riley's, and then you can kind of see that open garage door that will become the opening to the Beer City Music Hall. And then this is, this will all be grass. That silver shed will be the where Reed will do all of his brewing. And then you can kind of tell it's a little tough, but they're building that tap room in between the silver building and the pink building. And the pink building will be a restaurant. So Reed and his wife, Adrian, want to actually serve their own food. I don't know of any breweries yet that have tried to take that on, but they feel like that's a big component. So we'll have 2 restaurants there on site. This is the kind of inside of the music venue. It's very attractive right now. They're getting ready to get started on that, but it'll still have a grit to it. It won't be like the tower that has $1 million worth of speakers and rigging and lighting and all of that. This is the view from the venue looking out back to the northeast towards the plant. And, when we bought it, a lot of people asked if we were going to build a wall or what we were going to do. And I think you can tell from the way I've been talking about it, we wanted to embrace it and view it as kind of a way to see a different part of Oklahoma City. It's just a closer view of that. This will be the tap room. And then this is his brewery space, the silver shed that's there. And then that's just looking back towards the parking lot. And, you can see the 2 icons of Oklahoma City, the Devon Tower and the county jail. So it's amazing how close you are really to all of that. And I do think there's an advantage here of it's a lot easier to get to the west side of downtown from traffic wise than it is to the east side. So we do think we'll get a lot of commuter traffic, people kind of heading either on their way back to the suburbs and stop by here first and grab some food and a drink, or people coming into town. And then this is the next project. So Steve just did a write-up on this, but this is the Able building. Probably many of you familiar with it. It's at 13th and Harvey on the northwest corner there. And so this has been on the market for a long time. We've actually toured it for probably 1.5 years and just couldn't get comfortable pulling the trigger. And we actually had a brewery who was going to take the west side of this, where those 2 garage doors are, and we were actually gonna condo that out, sell that to them, and then take the front space. This building is surprisingly large. It's about 30,000 square feet. And so when that fell through, we decided to go ahead and pull the trigger and still buy it. But we got into talks with Jeremy Gardner, and currently Gardner has both a fabrication company, a construction company, and then their design firm. And so he's leasing 3 different buildings right now. And if you take the rent and add them all together, it's essentially equivalent to him taking 70% of this space at market rate and being in the same location. And so we've known Gardner for a long time. He designed the Sunshine building and the Main Street Arcade building, and Barrios for us. And so we have a great relationship with him, and so felt like it was a cool way to partner. So the idea will be that he'll take the left side of this building and then the upstairs that's in the back. The front space that you see, that was and I'll show you another picture on this, but this was an old Chrysler dealership. And so the north kind of, the top of that page is what it used to look like, which is pretty cool. And so our goal is to take that back. They put in a drop ceiling we'll rip out. And so we're currently working right now with a food and beverage tenant on a concept there. They also want to co-invest. We think that it will work, but we've all agreed to play it slow right now. Now is probably not the best time to try to go open a food and beverage concept. So we'll work with them. Like I said, they had turned down several other spaces because they couldn't be an owner. And that's one of the things that we've tried to do in the past is allow our tenants to buy in to the real estate. And so we have some equity here for them to be able to come in and same thing that Gardner's doing. Gardner's, I think, moved 5 times in the last 8 years. And so for him to be able to have a space that he owns or owns a portion of and can put everything in and grow into was really attractive. This is what it will look like when we're done. You can see the 2 kind of garage bays to the left. We'll put in a new skylight on top of the building. There used to be a skylight there, and they boarded that up, and so we'll open that back up. And then, you know, we hope that if the food and beverage concept goes, we'll probably take the patio that's there. I don't know if you guys have noticed it before, but that will become a patio really out to 13th Street. And we've had concern about food and beverage there only because it's a little sleepy. But for the concept we're talking to, there will be focused heavily on the catering business, and that close of a proximity to OU is really attractive. And then you add in, they're going to put in a whole grab and go type concept where, you know, you basically driving south on Harvey and you pull to the side and they run their food out to you. So we like that idea. I think it would be one of the few food and beverage concepts that we would actually be comfortable with right now. This is if you're on the east side of the road and you're looking back to the west. So the coolest thing about this building is how many windows have just been boarded up. And so to be able to open those back up, it will really look spectacular, we think. We're not doing a historic tax credit project, so we don't have to worry about any of that. And really our goal is just to open up all the spaces that were there. On the north side of the building, which is where that the parking lot is for St. Luke's, they actually, the whole back wall is windows, and they put cinder block on the outside of it and covered all the windows up. And so we're just going to go in and tear out the cinder block, and the windows are actually in fairly good condition, but we'll open that back up too. So for a building this size, it's going to have a ton of natural light to it. This is just another picture of what it'll look like from looking back north. This is, you can kind of tell what I'm talking about here in regard to the windows. Those will all be opened back up. And that's it on kind of those 2 projects. And so I don't know if there's any questions or anything like that. Happy to talk about that.
Well, if anybody has any questions, yeah, you can either unmute yourself, or if you'd like, just send something in the chat box and I can ask Jonathan from it.
On everything you're working on right now, how have your lenders been? Have they been working with you, or just kind of playing it by ear as you go, or how's that working?
I think, you know, really for us, I would say 99% of the lenders have been awesome to work with. We've had to talk with a few. You know, really what we did was we tried, the moment they announced they were shutting down restaurants, we went to all of our lenders and asked for deferral of principal and interest payments, and then agreed to pass that on to our tenants. And so we've tried to be pretty proactive with them. I think we feel really good about the current situation, you know, in terms of going till July, because that's what we really don't have any debt payments until July. There was one building we didn't do that with, and that was Centennial Health over on the east side, because they're still going and we didn't need to ask the banks for that. I think my biggest concern is if we have a spike, if we open up too soon and we have a spike in the fall and we have to go back to isolation, at that point, what's the bank's temperament's going to be? What's the, you know, the incentive, federal incentive is going to be to help support those businesses? So I think we're probably, and I think a lot of it has to do with the banks dealing with this. The best thing that happened is that it was totally pervasive across the market. And so it wasn't like there was a single industry that was doing the wrong thing and they got caught, you know, their hands got caught in the cookie jar. It's like every single piece of business was touched. And so I think that that allowed the banks the freedom to jump in and say, we'll be a partner with you on this.
Jonathan, yeah, you know, the great thing about the breweries, alcohol is one of those things where you're in a bad spot, you want to drink, and if you're in a good spot, you want to drink. So.
Yeah, the Able building, I mean, the Able building, the Able Commission has been, I have struggled at times to believe that they knew what being flexible meant. And it has been astounding to see, I think, how quickly they've responded in a favorable way to small businesses to at least allow them to, continue. And so you've got guys like Riley at Barbalata that's making cocktail kits for you, and they're able to deliver. And you have people who are, you can deliver beer and you can do these things, which are really an interesting, I think they've opened it up till May 14th. So everyone's okay for right now, but we'll see what happens.
We have a question on the chat. Have the restaurant tenants discussed any changes in their plans for interiors after the shelter-at-home order is lifted? For example, table spread out or limited capacity.
They have, and we've talked to them about that. I think there's a little bit of there's questions on, is there going to be a forced decision or is it going to be left up to them? I think, we've talked about things like 50% occupancy. So whatever your max occupancy was, lowering that to 50%, or, is that going to be enforced, or are they just leaving it up to the kind of the best guess of a food and beverage operator? I don't know if you saw what they did in Wuhan with the proximity. If one person, they showed basically the spread of what happened in a restaurant where one person had it and sat down, and it touched like 7 or 8 people that ended up getting infected by this one person just sitting in that restaurant. So I think creating as much space as possible is going to be critical. But I think everyone will react quickly, but they're waiting to figure out, are we going to get some actual instructions on what to do, or are we just going to say, good luck?
Yeah, Aaron, from what I've seen, there are different restaurant groups that are taking completely different approaches. Some are opening up May 1st, and some are staying on the curbside and to-go only May 1st. So I don't know. I think it's just something that we'll just see as it moves forward. What else do we have? Got a
tough crowd.
I know, right? They must be in shock still because they haven't got to visit with anybody for 30 days.
Hey, Jonathan, I'll ask a question. How are things going on the Northeast side?
Hey, there's a guy that sold me the building. What's up, Brad?
Good,
Brad sold us, he was the broker. He did a heck of a job on Northwest 2nd and Klein. He dealt, he would never say this. He shined while dealing with a very difficult seller. So we appreciate your commitment to get that thing done. So you asked how things are going on the east side. I mean, it's I think it's a struggle. We've got, obviously our banks agreed to defer payments. We had the group of tenants that we had over there, we have a gym that I don't know when that's going to open up. We've got an optometrist that I don't know when that's going to be able to open up. We've got 2 restaurants. We've got a physical therapist that shut down, and then we've got 1 office tenant. And so it's going to be difficult. It's going to be interesting to see how they're able to weather. And then we've got event space. So all of those are things that are fairly in already a distressed area. It's going to be interesting. I think we had a plan worked out with the city to figure out a way to stabilize that long term, and then COVID hit, and now like everything's off the table. And so we're doing what we can, but it is definitely interesting over there.
I've got a second question here. What's been the biggest challenge on the second project?
The second. Oh, on the Able building?
Yes.
I mean, I think there's a couple things. One would be it's getting financing right now. We thought we had a kind of a deal lined out with the bank, and it's not their fault at all. But they came back after getting the appraisal, which appraised for everything. Everything was good. Jeremy signed the lease for 70% of the space. And they said, man, you know, we like the deal, but given this, we need you to bring an extra 10% equity to the table. And so trying to go raise equity in when people will pay you to take their oil and gas in Oklahoma City is not the easiest thing to do. And so we're hoping that we can find another lender that'll work with us and maybe do a, you know, construction loan to an SBA 504 or something like that. But that has been a difficult aspect. And then just figuring out how to really, until Jeremy jumped on board, I would say that he's actually, well, he was going to take like 11,000 square feet to start. And then it turned to 13, and then it turned to 15, and then it turned to 17. And so he's really like, he's actually self-stabilized that project in a way that I don't think if we had him, we wouldn't have been able to do. So we're at a point now where we feel really good about it, you know, moving forward. But debt is by far the number one thing right now with where we're at.
Tammy, wanted to let you know we are recording this, so we can definitely send out this whole presentation to you all as well. Question.
Paul just did something.
Of all the books on your shelf, what is your favorite?
So I have read them all. I think we would have to go with a genre, Paul. They're up on my shelf because I like them all. But if I was going to go fiction, maybe Lonesome Dove or Joan of Arc. All the Tears We Cannot Stop by Michael Dyson's great. The Great Inversion, The Future of the American City is great. Stamped from the Beginning. I could go on. Thank you for that question.
Do you have any other questions, any comments? Anybody want to just speak up and say hi to everyone? You're more than welcome to.
I had a conference call with someone today, and we talked for 5 minutes, and we got done, and he goes, man, I am so exhausted from this extroversion. I need to go take a nap. So, okay, guys. Well, thanks for letting me be on. I appreciate it. I hope it's weird not seeing your faces or being able to shake your hands or checking on you. So I hope everybody's doing okay. And I appreciate all of you guys. And hopefully we'll get to actually do this in person sometime.
Jonathan, thank you from everybody on here. Thank you for coming on and going through your projects that you're working on. You know, these get-togethers are definitely still needed. And Tammy, thanks for letting me help out with this. I know that you're kind of wanting to talk. Unfortunately, your mic's not working very well. So thank you all and have a great day. Enjoy that weather.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Thank you.